Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another Mistweaver video. This is LB Ninja 7, and I've got a lot to discuss today, so it might be a slightly longer video, but there's a lot of information to go over. So with the nerfs to Venthyr, it's caused a pretty big rift in the Mistweaver community, with no one really knowing what to play, what covenant. You'll hear me saying that Kyrian is the best, and you'll hear others saying that Necro is the best, while others still want to stick to Venthyr. Because of this confusion, I wanted to make this video discussing how each covenant will play in 9.2. A quick warning, some parts of this video may get math intensive, but nothing we can't handle. So without further ado, let's talk about the covenants. Let's first discuss Venthyr. As you know, our crits will reduce the cooldown of Fallen Order by 2.5 seconds down from 5 seconds last patch. How does this nerf affect our cooldown and uptime? Well, previously we were able to knock down the cooldown of Fallen Order to about 16 seconds in the best case scenario. How it would work was it starts off at a 180 second or a 3-minute cooldown, and while it's active, that 24 seconds, the cooldown is ticking down for that 24 seconds. Every crit that we would get with a small internal cooldown of it only applying every 3/4 of a second, it would knock down the cooldown that's left by 5 seconds. So by the time that duration was over, the cooldown would be 156 seconds if you did absolutely nothing, if you got 0 crits. Now to get it down to 16 seconds, we would have had to reduce it by 140 seconds. With the new changes, this best case scenario of shaving off 140 seconds will now only shave off 70 seconds. So our old best case had Fallen Order at a 16-second cooldown. Now it's at an 86-second cooldown. So say that you live in magical Christmas land where you're able to get it down to 16 seconds every single time last patch. You would have had Fallen Order active 24 out of every 40 seconds. That 40 seconds being the 24 plus the 16 cooldown. So you would have it up 60% of the time. Now it will be up 24 out of 110 seconds, or 21.8% of the time. And once again, that 110 seconds is the 24-second duration. That ticks off plus, or that it's active plus the 86-second cooldown. So you would go from a 60% uptime to a 21.8% uptime. That's in the best case. That's if you played every rotation of Fallen Order perfectly and, everything was just on your side. Now, without that best case scenario in mind, say we're to shave off about 100 seconds, it was pretty easy to do last expansion, shaving off 100 seconds. That would be getting 25 instances of crits on time, basically. So the cooldown would then have been 56 seconds, or slightly less than a minute, when it ended. And that was probably about what you'd see most of the time you press the ability. But now, after the nerf, that scenario would only get the cooldown to 106 seconds, or a minute and 46 seconds. Using the same math, in this case, your uptime would go from 24 out of every 80 seconds to 24 out of every 130 seconds, or it would go from a 30% uptime of Fallen Order to 18.5% uptime, which is not so exciting. I will say that Venthyr probably has the best conduit of all the covenants. Their conduit adds quite a bit of healing to Fallen Order. However, their soulbinds are pretty lackluster. Theotar's our best option, but he's not a reason to choose Venthyr. His aim gives a bit of healing, and the conduit's good, but it's, once again, just not worth it. Now with that out of the way, let's discuss our 2 damage options. So that's Venthyr. We all know what it does. It's losing a lot, and it's going to play a lot less smooth this tier. So that's out of the way. Let's go ahead and let's talk about the 2 damage options, which would be Night Fae and Necro. So I call these our damage options because they're the best ones at doing damage, obviously. But they also have some healing components. So first, let's discuss Night Fae really quick and honestly get this one out of the way. Since this is target capped at 5 damaging targets and 5 healing targets, it won't put out the same numbers in raid as the other covenants. Looking at its healing numbers, they're comparable to Chi Burst, which is also on a 30-second cooldown. However, it does have a chance to reset itself. So if, any cast that we do while we're standing on that Fey line will have a 6% chance to reset its own cooldown. And once we get the double legendaries, this reset chance will double to 12%. But still, the issue in Raid is it being target capped. It will only benefit 5 of your members at a time. Now, I will say that this is our best damage option in Mythic Plus at 5 targets, but not by too much, honestly. And if you ever need a little help healing in scary pools in Mythic Plus, this is not the most exciting thing to dig you out of that hole. So then, let's talk about its counterpart, Necro, the better damage option in my opinion, and the opinion of probably most people. The benefit to Bonus Brew is it's more versatile than Feline Stomp because it's not on the target cap, despite having double the cooldown at a minute. How it works is you throw a brew down and it applies bone dust to any enemy or ally in that circle, any of them. It's uncapped. For 10 seconds that will be applied to them. What that effect does is it buffs your mastery proc to those targets by quite a bit. So applying your mists and also your revival will do a pretty juicy heal to them. And more importantly, it gives all of your spells a 50% chance to apply to your target at 40% effectiveness. So to simplify this math, for 10 seconds out of every minute, your healing will be increased by 20%. That 20% I got from, it's an average because half of your spells will duplicate at 40% effectiveness. So half of 40 is 20. That's the bonus that you'll be doing. So basically 10 seconds out of every 60 seconds, you'll be healing at 1.2 times the rate that you were. So now some of you are thinking this doesn't sound very exciting because it is a 20% buff to our healing, active up only a sixth of the time. So it will give us a total overall healing, taking all 60 seconds into account of the minute, of only 3.33%. And I found that by multiplying 20% by a sixth of the time. Now, this isn't exactly true, though, that number. It doesn't hold true in every time you use Bonus Brew, because I'd hope that you know to play around this buff by expending cooldowns inside of this window, like Yulon or Revival. So it should work out to be bigger than a 3.33% increase to your healing. Hopefully, if you know to play around it. Another reason why this shouldn't be just 3.33% of an increase is because our Soulbind Emini is going to give us an up to 13% intellect increase, which is massive whenever we throw Bone Dust Brew down, as long as we hit, I'm pretty sure it's 4 allies. And we're also going to be getting that Conduit buff to help us with Amplifier, so it should give us quite a bit more healing. But now for the part that I haven't mentioned yet. This legendary loses effectiveness the less people that you hit with it. So if you are to hit 20 people every single time, then the math will work out just as I explained just a second ago. But as we know in Raid, not everyone will be stacked all the time. Your mage likes to be off in Narnia, while your hunter likes to just jump off the map. So one easy way that you could adjust the math is to change that 20% buff to your healing a sixth of the time to an X% buff to your healing a sixth of the time, where X is the amount of allies you hit with the brew. So if you hit all 20 people, you will get that number, the 3.33%, which is 0.2 or 0.20 times 1/6 of the time. But if you hit 15 people, you will get 2.5% total overall healing buff, which is 0.15 times the 1/6. This is just a clever math trick that I've done. It's not like it doesn't change the actual effect of Bonus Brew to 0.15. It's just, since you're hitting 15 people, that 20, you can just think of it as 0.15. So obviously, this is depending on how much you're able to pump to those targets affected by the Bonus Brew, just like before. It depends on how much you use inside the Bonus Brew window, and now that you're hitting less people, your heals would have to hit those people specifically, instead of, your revival hits your whole group, but only those 15 people will get the the chance of a buff, if that makes sense, and also the bonus to the mastery. So basically what I'm trying to get across is that the benefits of Bonus Brew are pretty difficult to quantify. And to add on top of that, there's a lot of variance from the ability. Since it says that 50% of the time you'll gain a bonus effect, there's still, the chance that you get unlucky and you barely get any procs from Bonus Brew, or you could get very lucky and get a ton of procs from Bonus Brew. So it's really hard to quantify just because the nature of variance and randomness is in effect with this ability. So now take all that crap that I just told you and multiply it times 10 when we bring in the legendaries. First, I want to talk about how Bonus Brew interacts with ancient teachings in the monastery. So say you and your enemy are affected by Bonus Brew, and you use Rising Sun Kick, and you have your ancient teachings buff active. So that Rising Sun Kick does 10,000 damage. You would be healed normally by your legendary for 25,000 damage. Now, that heal will have a chance to proc again at 40% effectiveness from Bonus Brew, and the damage will have a chance to proc again at 40% effectiveness from Bonus Brew. But if the damage procs again, it will not trigger the Ancient Teachings legendary. So if that 10k hits at 40% effectiveness, so you would hit the boss for 10k from your Rising Sun Kick, but then Bonus Brew would hit it for 4k, and that Bonus Brew does not proc Ancient Teachings, only Rising Sun Kick does. Well, only your punches and kicks do. So so you can't double up in that sense. It doesn't give you an extra Ancient Teachings proc. It will only either buff the healing or buff the kick. But there is a chance that you could get the damage to proc on it and also the heal to proc on it, because they're separate instances. So hopefully that explains it, because a lot of people are like, oh, well, you could just get an extra kick. And it's like, yeah, you could get that extra bonus damage from the kick, but it won't proc Ancient Teachings. But that Ancient Teachings heal could also get a bonus, if that makes sense. Hopefully that clears that up. But now let's talk about the legendary for Bonus Brew. This one is a doozy, so stay tuned. So your spells have a small chance, to launch a Bonus Brew at your target's feet. Now, this legendary is so hard to quantify the benefit for. Since Bonus Brew already has a variance to take into account, now we also have to add in that we don't get to control where these brews land. So they won't be as consistent in hitting your entire raid every time. But what we do know is that you will get, on average, about 1.5 procs of this per minute. So it has a pretty solid uptime. So like if you want to, do some rough math, you'll have about 25 seconds out of every minute with someone having Bonus Brew on it on average. But yeah, like I said, it won't hit everyone every time. So yeah, it has a pretty solid uptime, but we can't really play around it, or plan around it due to the random nature of the legendary. But with our biggest gain in 9.2 being our tier set, let's start to talk about that with these covenants, since these are kind of the main two that I have left. The 2 set buffing our essence font by a small amount is a nice buff, but won't really affect our play at all. With Bonus Brew, or just in general, it won't really affect our play at all. And we'll only add 2 seconds extra to the HOTS. That may allow those HOTS to kind of, extend a little longer into our Bonus Brew if we used it before the Bonus Brew. But it's just a negligible buff, so it's not really worth going too deep into. Our biggest gain, though, is the 4-piece tier set, which does line up pretty nicely with Bonus Brew. Since it's a 1 minute, Bonus Brew is a 1 minute cooldown, and Thunder Focus Tea, or the 4-piece tier set, is every 30 seconds. So every other rune we make will benefit from Bonus Brew. Also, all of the extra procs that we get from Bonus Brew, all those extra heals, can proc the rune to buff them by a slight amount. But from what I've seen in the extra procs, it's very hard to tell how these interactions work, especially we still don't have the live server to be able to test it and see how they've changed it or what they've done to it. But from what I've seen, the extra procs from the tier set aren't buffed from Bonus Brew. So you can get Your Bone Dust brews that happen while you have the rune active can be slightly buffed by the rune, but anytime that any of your abilities are buffed by the rune, it can't proc, that won't proc your Bone Dust brew. Hopefully that comes across right, because I know you guys like to tear me up in the comments, but yeah, so that's just what I've observed, and I really tried to really focus on that because I wanted to get that interaction correctly. So all in all, this will lead to more procs of your rune, and quite a bit more damage and healing by going Necro in 9.2. But now let's get into the final covenant, which is Kyrian. I've made a video guide for playing Kyrian in 9.2, so if you haven't seen it, go check that out. But let's talk about what it has to offer. So first off, Weapons of Order is the big draw, honestly. It gives us a pretty big mastery bonus, which, just like Bone Dust Brew, will buff some of our main abilities. But I will note that this bonus is less than the one from Bone Dust Brew, but it lasts for 30 seconds versus Bone Dust Brew's only lasting 10 seconds. That buffed our mastery. It also affects our mastery on any target where Bone Dust Brew only buffs our mastery to those it hits. So it buffs our mastery, whereas Bone Dust Brew only buffs our mastery for the people it's applied to. The main draw, however, to Weapons of Order is that it resets our Essence font cooldown. Now, this may not seem super sexy like the others, but being able to Essence font, then do it again immediately after, means that we can blanket twice as many people of our raid in Essence font hots. These hots don't do too much healing, although the bolts do as we shoot them out. But the hots don't do too much healing. However, what they do is make our Rising Sun kicks activate the talent Rising Mist on them, so on twice as many people. So now a Rising Mist will hit roughly twice as many people, which can add up some healing in and of itself. Also, one thing I haven't even mentioned is that the essence fonts that you used while Weapons of Order is active on you can cause you to send out, or they will cause you to send out a mini wave of healing to everyone around you when you start the channel, and once again when you finish the channel. So in your Weapons of Order, after you press it, it lasts 30 seconds. You can fit 3 essence fonts in there, so you'll get 3 of those little procs. However, the Thunder Focus Tea rune that will summon only lasts 10 seconds, so you'll only be able to get 1 of those little waves of healing, or I guess 2, one when you start channeling your essence font and then 1 after, inside that window. One thing to note is that this covenant does benefit the most from the 2-piece tier set bonus, since it's the only one that directly affects essence font. But like I've mentioned before, that 2-set bonus isn't as big of a bonus as we might hope, so it's not a big enough reason alone to make us choose Kyrian. Now let's briefly talk about the legendary for Kyrian. When we use Weapons of Order, we'll get a slightly less effective version of either Yulon or Chi-Ji, whichever one we're talented into. These have their effectiveness nerfed slightly, the ones that we summon from the legendary, by having the bonus of Yulon's breath that it gives, that bonus to all of our healing to anyone that it applies to. But the mastery bonus that you get from Weapons of Order, it kind of offsets that a bit. So basically every 2 minutes you get a free Yulon in raid, which is very powerful, but it can eat up your mana bar. Yulon can, because we're casting Enveloping Mist, which is very expensive. I will say that if I start to have mana problems while using this legendary, I may just completely ignore the free Yulon that it summons. Or maybe I just cast 4 Enveloping Breaths instead of the 8 that I usually try to get in during a Yulon window. Especially since that Yulon's Breath is going to be nerfed. Or it's not going to be, it is. So, all in all, this legendary can only boost us so much, depending on how much mana we're willing to pump into these free Yulons that we're getting. So this legendary isn't as exciting as just Weapons of Order itself. Finally, I do want to touch on the one big draw to Kyrian, which is how it benefits from the 4-piece. Now, this covenant can abuse the 4-piece the most of all the covenants, since while we are in our rune, we can either just have used Weapons of Order to enter into that rune window with 2 sets of Essence Font HOTS out onto the raid, making all of those HOTS benefit from the rune buff, and also causing around twice as many people to get hit by those Rising Mists, and each Rising Mist to get buffed by the tier set as well. Also, if you want to play into the Yulon that your Legendary will summon, its healing will get buffed by the rune as well. Also, if you want to use the Essence Font that is buffed by Weapons of Order, those 2 pulses it sends out to everyone near you will also be buffed too. So you could do something really cute like come in, like, use Thunder Focus Tea, drop your rune down, and then you could Essence Font and then Weapons of Order, and then just start your channel of Essence Font and then cancel it really quickly just to send out those 2 pulses really instantly. But that's just like a trick. I don't think that's going to benefit too much. That wouldn't be worth it, honestly, in my opinion. You want those Essence Fonts to fully channel. But this Covenant does edge out Necrolord in how many procs the 4-piece tier set will be getting. And that is the main reason why I believe it will be the strongest. And in my testing, I did find that it was slightly stronger. Alright, now, if you're like me, you've probably heard all of this information and thought, honestly, who cares? I just want to hear what's best, what should I play week 1, and what should I play once I get full power. And I've put together these 2 slides. I'll throw them up on the screen, but this first one, it's just my thoughts on what the pros and cons kind of are, just like 3 things to take from each Covenant. Kyrian, it's going to be your best healing option, but you won't gain any damage, and especially once you get your power, your tier set especially, you'll grow more than the other Covenants. Night Phase a meme, only play at Mythic Plus if you want to, but I would definitely play Necro in its place in Mythic Plus. You'll gain as much damage basically while gaining even more healing, so it's kind of just a meme. And then Fallen Order is still gonna be it's still gonna be fine, especially once you get the Legendary. But just know it won't be a 15-second cooldown. It's gonna be like a minute and a half cooldown. But it's gonna be pretty strong while you have it up. And then Necro, it's pretty random. You can't control it. You can't really use it to get big spikes in healing like you'd like. You know, you don't really need to double up on your revival. Your revival does what it does already. Like Bone Dust will make that into overhealing, and then like same with Vivify. It's like if you need to vivify one person up, while you have Bone Dust brew out, who knows if you'll even get the extra proc. So it's kind of it's just weird. But it's kind of, you can just throw it and forget it kind of thing, which is nice. So you'll get some pretty solid healing there. This next slide is kind of just the verdict on what I think you should play and when you should play it. So Kyrian, you're going to get your biggest spike once you get your tier set because it just benefits more than the others from it. But you don't gain too much from the double legendary. You'll only gain as much as like your mana can provide. So if you play these first couple weeks Kyrian and you notice that you have like your whole mana bar at the end of the fight, then yeah, you'll gain a ton from this legendary because you'll be able to pump Yulon twice as much basically in the fight. So and then also once again, Night Phase a meme, it'll get fun once you get the double legendary, so I recommend playing it to have fun, but it's not the most viable option there either. Now the biggest gain that you'll get for Venthyr is going to be from that double legendary, but you don't gain much from the tier set, and then at that point you kind of it'll fall off more than the other 2, but it's safe, and I get it, some of you love this play style, so you might still want to play it, and you might not even miss the extra healing or the extra damage that you're going to get from the other Covenants. So sure, if you find that you don't need more healing, play Venthyr. It's easy, it's fun, and yeah, just go there. But for the first couple weeks, you're going to want to probably play Necro. It's kind of just a good hybrid option if you need to just pump more damage for prog, or if you need to spike your healing, or just have a minute cooldown for healing. It kind of does all that well. It doesn't do any of them great, which is kind of why it's, in my opinion, it's not going to be as good.
in the long run. But in these first few weeks, it kind of does everything that you want to do in Prague. So I would definitely recommend playing Necro the first couple weeks until you start to get that tier set. Once you get the two-piece tier set and double legendaries, then I would probably swap. Actually, two-piece plus the double legendaries, it's probably a tie between the all but Night Fae. But then once you get the four-piece, I definitely think Kyrian benefits so much from it that you'll probably want to swap there to Kyrian. But then Necro will still be fine, so will Venthyr. All of them are good options. I really just wanted to make this video to kind of lay it all out for you guys so you can come back to this and determine how you want to play this tier. We have three great options. We're not going to be as strong of healers as Resto Druids this tier or as strong as we were last tier, but these are kind of just like our healing profiles that we can kind of lean into and see what our guild will benefit from the most. So if you need a really strong cooldown every 2 minutes, then Venthyr's your go-to. Or I guess 3 minutes before you get the legendary. And then if you just need really consistent output, Kyrian or Necro are going to be your go-tos. If you need burst, the Necro. It's just figure out what your guild needs, figure out how you want to play and what you need, and just go there. You'll have a ton of fun because Mistweaver is fun. Ancient Teachings is a blast. So just play this tier, comment down below what you think is the best, what's going to work for you, and let's try to really figure out how we can push Mistweaver back to the top because I feel like we're kind of getting overlooked right now. And we need to figure out which of these options can get us back there. So comment down below what you think. Hit like if you liked the video. Hit dislike if you didn't like it. It really helps me out seeing those numbers because I know some videos just are controversial. Some people just are stuck on one covenant, and it's kind of annoying, but I get it. And this video is kind of meant to lay it all out for you guys. So comment, like, and hit subscribe. I'm telling you, I'm close to 500, and then I'll do a 12-hour stream. And you guys have no idea how much it just makes my day better to see that I got a couple new subscribers. It makes my day at work. I'll see while I'm working that I got a subscriber, and it gets me through the day. So y'all mean the world to me. Keep it up. Let's smash this tier because I really think one of these covenants is going to crack the code. So we just have to figure out which one. But yeah, we can do it. So yeah, I will see you guys in the next one. I'll see you guys on Tuesday. The raid's coming out. I wish you all the best of luck. Hopefully we all smash through all 8 bosses, and y'all have a good one.